On this episode of UAP Studies, Katie, we have Daniel Sheehan who will be joining us.
I am so looking forward to this. I have, passed him in the halls many times at I've never had the pleasure to meet him personally. I don't know why. He's just always so busy. And he's doing excellent work with the Citizens for Disclosure movement and the New Paradigm Institute. So I think I'm going to learn a lot in this episode for sure. And I'm really looking forward to it.
He's a workhorse for sure. I think every time we see him, he's unapproachable because there's a crowd of people around him. There's constantly a mic in his face. He's doing an interview, even podcasts. I think he's constantly on podcasts and educate. And it doesn't matter whose podcast, he will go on and talk about it because that's his mission, and I love it. I think that he's definitely a pioneer when it comes down to at least the lawyer side of UAPs and what the law states, and very knowledgeable too on the government, especially United States government, how it works, its layers. So we'll pick his brain about this, of course. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This was an interview we were supposed to do at Contact in the Desert, but we had a mix up at the end where he wasn't able to attend it. So I had to leave the next morning. So I wasn't able to do the earlier interview that they wanted, but we got it done. And I'm so thankful because you were able to be here as well and to be able to ask him these questions. So let's get right into it. And we'll be right back with Daniel Sheehan. Well, guys, as promised, we have the lawyer of UAPs is in the house. Daniel Sheehan is joining us on a UAP Studies podcast. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Terrific. I'm glad to be here, Jason. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
my first question to you, and I'll shoot it off to Katie right afterwards, but my first question to you is what we've been talking about lately is just the plethora of information we seem to be getting every week, every month. There seems to be always something added to this whole disclosure thing. The government's shutting it down or they're denying things, and Congress is still looking into it. And now we have this blatant lie from the military going, "Oh, it's our technology. We've been kidding you guys for 70 plus years that it's us. It's not aliens." I'm kind of lost at this point, Daniel. So I'm just wondering how you're handling it from your end, especially being on the inside for the disclosure movement.
Well, actually there are like three or four different dimensions, on which things are going on right now. You know, one of them is, of course, the first sort of dimension is the public hearings. People have heard a lot about the public hearings going on. There's discussions about more public hearings taking place. Anna Polina Luna, who is the chairperson of the task force on the disclosure or declassification of federal secrets, which is all a task force as part of the oversight committee, the House Oversight Committee, that she has been trying to get a public hearing about the UFO issue to be held during July before the summer recess. And we know that Eric Burleson, who is a member of that task force and a member of that oversight committee, has been calling for a hearing on the UFO issue. The problem is that, as you'll note, of the 11 people that are on that task force that are inside the House Oversight Committee, 8 of them are all freshmen, and they've been assigned to that because actually the freshmen are the ones who don't know enough not to keep insisting upon having a public hearing about the UFO thing. They haven't been kind of read into Washington that you're not supposed to keep trying to get the citizens involved. You're still neophytes here. You still believe in the constitutional government. You still believe in having the people participate in the governing process. And so that 8 of you that are all freshmen keep on saying, "Here, let's hold a public hearing." Well, the full committee people who have more longevity realize that's not how things are done in Washington. You have to get permission from the leadership of the governing party. You have to get the White House to agree with it. If the governing party in each of the House and Senate is also in charge of the White House, etc. So what's happening right now is you get Luna and the chair of the task force and Burleson calling publicly, announcing that we're trying to get hearings held, and yet for some reason they don't happen. Uh, and so that as of right now, we're trying to mobilize the people through the New Paradigm Institute around the country that are all citizens for disclosure to keep writing letters, sending letters in to their congressmen, their congressional representatives, and to Comer, who is the chair of the House Oversight Committee, to have a public hearing about UFOs. And there have been three so far. That there was the original one where they called in the two representatives from the National Security Agency, et cetera, who said they didn't even know anything about UFO stuff. We didn't even know if it was going on, which was a useless hearing. But then there was the very important hearing in which David Grush testified back in July of 2023. And then there was the more recent one with the House Oversight Committee, where Lou Elizondo, among others, testified. But the bottom line is the task force is trying to hold a public hearing about the UFO issue, and it's just not happening yet. So that is the first dimension of the news that people hear about. They're on again, off again to have these public hearings, and the information keeps flowing about what was actually said in the other public hearings. So there's that whole public hearing aspect of it. Then there's a second dimension, which is the actual legislation, and that there is the news there is very important, and that is that Senator Mike Rounds, who was the co-sponsor with Senator Chuck Schumer, when Chuck Schumer was the majority leader for the Senate, when the Democrats were still in control of the Senate, they sponsored the UFO Controlled Disclosure Act back in 2023. Which passed the Senate kind of almost unanimously, right? It went over to the House side, and we were successful in getting only 23 of the 64 pages of the bill that was passed by the Senate, passed by the House. But that was a very important thing that happened because the 23 pages that were approved by both the Senate and the House called for, in fact, demanded that all 6 of our United States military forces, that's the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard and others, Space Force, that all of them are required now by law to gather all the information together. Every single memo, every single white paper, every single telephone call, every single record that had to do with the UFO issue since January 1st of 1945 had to be all completely gathered together and put into digital format with a searchable index and turned over to the National Archives. The Senate bill required that it be all completed by October 20th of 2024 last year, and immediately turned over to the National Archives. So there was a whole lot of activity around that. Everybody getting very excited. We had a global disclosure day all scheduled for October 20th. And what happened is the executive branch reached out, the Central Intelligence Agency in the Defense Department reached out to the office, the National Archives, and got them to issue a statement saying, no, it's okay, you can postpone this for a year. In complete defiance, basically, of the legislation. And postponed it for another year. So what's happening now, very importantly, is that Senator Mike Rounds, the Republican who was the co-sponsor with Chuck Schumer of the bill in 2023, has announced that he and Chuck Schumer, now that the Republicans are in charge of the Senate, have agreed they're going to reintroduce the Senate bill, and they're going to pass that. which is extremely important because that's all 64 pages. Because in addition to the 23 pages that made it all the way through the House, the remaining 30 pages or so of the bill, they call for setting up a 9-person review board that is going to review all of that information and would be required to release everything that's 25 years old or more immediately. And that's part of the Senate bill. And the extremely important good news is that the Senate is getting set to repass that. So Rounds and Schumer and both the Republican and Democratic leadership in the Senate have resolved that they're going to come back again and pass the full 64-page bill. And that'll be done by August 1st. So right this month, they're going to be passing that, all right? And they're going to insist that that be put into the National Defense Authorization Act when it's finally approved in December. So that bill is going to go, that 64-page bill is going to go over to the House side. And Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia from California has agreed to reintroduce the full 64-page bill in the House side. And so what we're trying to do now is to get a Republican co-sponsor of the bill in the House so that we can get someone in position of authority, i.e. in the Republican Party, over on the House side, to co-sponsor the bill. Then what we're going to have to do is overcome the resistance of the Speaker of the House, which is Michael Johnson. He, in fact, refused to allow the full bill to go to the floor for a vote back in 2023. He blocked it at the demand of the Republican chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Turner, and the demand of the Republican head of the House Armed Services Committee, Mike Rogers. They both wanted it stopped. Okay, we were able to overcome that to get 23 pages of it passed, which at least mandated that they gather all the information together and prepare it to be turned over to the National Archives. Now we're going to take another run at it with the full support of the Senate, now under Republican control, to pass the other 30 pages or so of the bill, so that the review board will be set up. That's an important thing because that 9-person review board to be appointed by the president is charged with responsibility under the statute, if passed, by the House, once it's passed by the Senate, to set up for that board, that 9-person board, to create a UFO controlled disclosure campaign plan that is to be followed by the president to reveal all of this information over a 7-year period, but to release all of the information that is 25 years old or more immediately. Okay, now that's an extraordinarily important part of the Senate bill that we're now leaning in on. We've succeeded in getting the Senate to agree to repass that. And so now what we're doing, though, is we're organizing the people through the Citizens for Disclosure, which is organized by our New Paradigm Institute all around the country. We have 25 state-level offices already, and we're looking to have 435 groups, one in each of the congressional districts, pressuring their respective members of the House and Senate to pass this full bill. Okay, and so that we're going to be doing that to get them to contact their senators during this month to make certain that they pass that bill through the Senate, that full 64-page bill. Now, we know that the Senate is disposed to doing that already, but we want the American people to participate in this process. So we want them to be communicating with their United States senators to get them to vote for the bill. And assuming that that's going to happen as of August 1st, and it's going to go over to the House, then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be directing the attention of the Citizens for Disclosure. And we have over 2,000 people in this already that are all around the country, okay? And we're going to get them to start focusing on their House member because when the summer recess starts on August 1st, the House members go back to their respective congressional districts and they start campaigning because they have to get reelected every 2 years. So when they go home for the summer recess, they hold town meetings and gatherings. They go to talk to the Kiwanis Club. They go to talk to the American Legion posts and all that. And so we're going to get our citizens to confront them in every one of these meetings, demanding that they agree to support the passage of the full 64-page bill in the House. And we're going to work on them all summer. And they're going to come back in after Labor Day and start meeting. And we're going to have the congressman from that I mentioned before are going to introduce the bill, and we've got to get the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. We've got to get him to agree to put it on the floor.
It sounds so complicated, though. It's
Well,
like
it
a
is.
puzzle.
Well, what it is, this is the legislative process. This is what they call the sausage making, that's going on. But the people know that these laws are being discussed by the Congress. They know that much. And that's what these details are. That's the second dimension, in addition to the public hearing issue that I raised. The the third dimension that's really going on here is the behind the scenes operations that are going on. The problem is that the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he is waiting to be told what to do by the president. the the Republican Party has completely collapsed now in the Congress. They've completely collapsed, and they are basically have become the lapdogs for President Trump. That if he tells them not to do something, they won't do it. If he tells them to do something, even if they resent it and they don't want to do it, he'll coerce them into doing it. And so Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is going to ask the White House to tell him what to do about this. So we are also directing our people in the Citizens for Disclosure to contact the president and remind him that 3 different times during the campaign for the presidency, he has promised that he was going to immediately direct the Defense Department and the intelligence community to publicly release all the information they have.
Right.
And he has not done that yet. So that's the behind the scenes operation that is going on right now. There are people that Tulsi Gabbard, who is the director of national intelligence, has stated she wants to have all the information released. Kash Patel, who is the head of the FBI, has stated that he wants all the information on the UFO stuff to be released. There are other people in the cabinet. For example, Robert Kennedy Jr. has publicly announced that he wants all the information to be released. So what we're doing is we're working in the back channels to try to get these people to reach out to President Trump to get him to fulfill his promise so that he'll issue the order directly to Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, to get them to approve the bill. Because Robert Garcia, the Democrat, is going to introduce this, and we're trying to get the new Republican chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Crenshaw, to co-sponsor the bill with him. So that just so you all know, all the people that are listening will know that the new Paradigm Institute is on the job. We're on the job. We're monitoring all of those different meetings that are going on, all the different machinations that are going on. We tend to share it when people ask us about it, but we have to be careful of it being kind of so much detail that they just get confused. The bottom line is the Senate has called for the public revelation of all this information, and we're working on the House to get them to agree to do it. But in order to get them to agree to do it, we've got to get President Trump to give them the direction to do it. So that's the whole third level of this of what's going on here, the behind the scenes activity. Now there's a fourth dimension to this whole problem, which people really realize, and that is, what is the position of the UFO people? What is the position of the extraterrestrial people? That why aren't they landing on the White House lawn? Why aren't they intervening? Why aren't they making a public announcement of that they're here? And what is it they want? Do they want this kept secret? Are they in communication with anyone trying to keep them from revealing this information? So there's all four of these different dimensions that are presently operative with regard to this issue. And all of it's going on right now. And the citizen groups, the New Paradigm Institute being sort of the primary one of it, because we have over 2,000 members all around the country that are writing letters to their congressmen and senators all over the place and holding meetings about it, et cetera. We have the UAP Disclosure Fund, which is Chris Mellon's group, basically. They're working on this. We have the Saul Foundation group, basically Gary Nolan's group over at Stanford, working away at this. We're in alliance with the MUFON people that are all working on this. So we're all going on podcasts such as this, telling people that they've got to mobilize and they've got to be aggressive and they've got to reach out to their congresspeople and senators. And at the same time, we're stimulating whistleblowers to go in and give more and more information, particularly to the Senate Intelligence Committee, whom we've already gotten pretty well mustered up here. I mean, the Senate is the one proposing the 64-page bill in response to what it is they're being told by these 40 whistleblowers that are telling them all this stuff. We're trying to get more of the whistleblowers that come forward and tell the Senate Intelligence Committee members even more than they've already told them. So what the focus is right now, as most people realize, is these two things. Number one, our government is in possession of one or more non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft. And they're in possession of the bodies of one or more of the ET beings who are occupants of these UFO craft. But thirdly, the point is that it's revealed now that our deep state, this element deep inside the intelligence community and the Defense Department, are actively engaged in trying to reverse engineer the technology, both the anti-gravity technology and the superluminal propulsion system, the faster than light propulsion system of the UFO craft. They're trying to develop this for a weapons system on the part of the United States. All of this has been revealed to the American public now. We've gotten the testimony of David Grush on this. We've gotten the testimony of Luis Elizondo, for whom I'm the attorney for him. We've gotten all of that information communicated publicly now. And so what people want to know is whether the government, the official constitutional government, is going to acknowledge this now, that this is going on. And that's the big drama that's going on right now. And now there's one other drama that's going on right now, of course, and that is trying to figure out to what degree, if any, this deep state element has in fact succeeded in back engineering any of this technology. Do they have craft that are able to mimic the UFOs? That they can pretend to be UFOs flying around and doing surveillance of our military facilities, et cetera. Why in the world would they be doing that? You know, why would our own national security state people be doing surveillance of our own military sites? Why would they shut off the missiles in the Minuteman missile silos? Why would they completely immobilize an entire United States aircraft carrier battle group out in the Atlantic Ocean? Just shut them down so they can't function. I mean, is this some kind of war games thing that they're rehearsing and practicing? What's going on here? Okay. Now that debate is going on. We have people at the extreme ends of this debate. We have Dr. Stephen Greer, of course, the head of the Disclosure Project, you know, for which I was, as you know, the general counsel for 20 years with Dr. Greer. He is asserting that they have effectively mastered both technologies, the anti-gravity and the superluminal flight, and that they have been able to succeed in constructing a significant number of these fake UFOs, and that they're flying all around and intentionally exposing themselves to the public to give the impression that there's lots of extraterrestrial UFOs flying all around. And what Dr. Greer is saying is that he's concerned that this deep state is planning to launch some sort of a fake alien invasion to try to generate massive new funding to the military, to allegedly develop a defense system, the very one they're trying to develop anyhow, to be a defense against the UFO people. That's Stephen at that extreme end of the spectrum. You have other people at the other end saying they don't even believe that they've been able to successfully reverse engineer this stuff because it's way too sophisticated. It's got such extraordinarily esoteric physics that are involved in it that they haven't really been able to succeed in this. They may have a few pretend UFOs they're using like little nuclear powered engines and trying to fake being UFOs, but that they haven't really mastered the technology of superluminal speeds, etc., or anti-gravity. Now, our New Paradigm Institute is in the business of trying to figure this out. You know, we are sort of the preeminent citizen group that's functioning right now in alliance with others, such as the UAP Disclosure Group of Chris Mellon, and with the Sol Foundation of Dr. Gary Nolan. We're all working together to try to figure out the answer to these questions so that the New Paradigm Institute can communicate this through our thousands of volunteers in the Citizens for Disclosure around the country and hold meetings with their neighbors. Have coffee gatherings, have showings, go do presentations to the local Kiwanis Club. We've got one high school in Florida that's agreed to allow us to do a high school assembly to talk to all the students there.
That's cool.
We've done a major presentation at Yale University to the faculty and to the student body there. That we're engaged in those kind of citizen mobilization activities right now to try to get this done. At the same time, our New Paradigm Institute is doing the deep investigation. We're the one of the different groups who has a capacity to do these field investigations because we're the ones that did the Iran-Contra case. We're the ones that did the Karen Silkwood case. I was one of the lawyers for the Pentagon Papers case for the New York Times. We've got investigators who can be doing these deep investigative activities. Okay, and of course we have the various investigative journalists. Ross Coulthart, for example, and Jesse Michaels. And some of the others, Matt, the people at the Good Trouble and all that. We've got a lot of people reaching out and trying to cultivate other, and Jeremy Corbell in George Knapp, very importantly. Matt Brown, they got the fellow from the State Department to come forward and reveal the documents and things that he had seen. So the citizens are very active in trying to stimulate our constitutional government into doing its job. But the problem is the national security state people have got a throat hold on our constitutional government right now. They're threatening members of Congress, the Senate and the House, that if they go forward and try to reveal all this information, that they're going to get them unseated, at least, or they're going to attack them to say that they're mentally ill because they believe in UFOs. That this national security state is a very dangerous thing that's going on right now. And so that's become a whole other element in trying to get disclosure about the UFO issue. It's exposing the hand of the national security state and how they have co-opted the constitutional functions of our government, where they're lying, they're committing perjury to Congress, they're filing absolutely false reports to Congress saying that there's no evidence that there's any extraterrestrial presence here. They've now co-opted the Arrow Office, the all domain anomalous resolution office. They've completely compromised them because they're under the control of the Defense Department and the intelligence community, which are the institutions that have been concealing this for 80 years. So this is what's going on right now. It's actually a great adventure, but it's important for people to know that there are places to which they can go and get some clear information about this, such as our New Paradigm Institute. They come to the newparadigminstitute.org. You can see it there at the bottom of my video. That they can just contact us and become part of the Citizens for Disclosure and be brought up to date 2 or 3 times every week. We send out a newsletter to let people know exactly what's going on here, and so that they can become involved in this. That's what we're engaged in. So all of these dimensions including this question, the fourth dimension of this, about what's going on with the ET people. What is it they're intending to do here? What are their plans? How much information are they willing to make available to us? So all four of these dimensions are going on at the same time. It's like a four-dimensional chess game that's happening right now. And our job at the New Paradigm Institute is to make this clear in kind of simple terms for people so that we know what progress we're making.
Mm, well said.
Well, that is a lot of information, and I have 10,000 questions running through my head right now. First of all, Daniel, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And in the big scheme of things, 2,000 people isn't a lot. Like, I feel like we need hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people behind this.
We
And
do.
we all know, I mean, it's one thing to disclose, and thank you for the work you're doing with the Citizens on Disclosure movement and the work you're doing at the New Paradigm Institute. It's really important work. But for the average person like me, the average researcher, investigator, the average person who tunes into all these different podcasts and kind of gets the flavor of the week, and they have questions about extraterrestrials and if the aliens are even out there. And I kind of lie in the middle. I have both my skeptical side, and I believe a lot of it is our back engineered stuff that we probably have. But most of us know that, the CIA and the DoD, they have been since probably the mid 50s into the 60s into the 70s, and it goes deep into the MK Ultra and mind control and experiments on children and unbeknownst people, and these deep dark secrets that are covered up so deeply because they've harmed innocent people. People have been killed over this. People think it could be demonic in nature. This where it gets deep into the cover up side of it. And my question to you is, number one, how interested are the actual congressmen and women in the House and the Senate interested in this topic at all? Are they interested that much? Is it kind of like low on their list of even dealing with this matter? And because there's so many deep secrets in the CIA and DoD, and there's so many players like the octopus, right? There's so many arms to this whole thing. It's meant to overwhelm and discourage to where people like me kind of start tuning out, like, we're never going to get the truth. We're never going to get answers on these deep projects from the DoD and CIA. There's so many people. And who are the gatekeepers now? And you mentioned, you're going to have a committee of 9 and there's these 30 pages that haven't been released. What's so important in these 30 pages, and who are the gatekeepers now? And do you think we'll ever get to, I mean, is there a way to disclose ET alien presence on our planet with protecting all the dirty deeds, I guess is a good way to say it, that the DoD and the CIA have been involved with for decades now? Is there a way to do that? Is there laws that we can establish that will protect that?
So there are 14 questions there.
I know. I said I
I'll take
had
I'll take
10,000, so
take the
14 was
last one.
pretty
I'll
good.
work our way back. We'll work our way back through those. Uh, the bottom line is that the what's being revealed here, surrounding the massive interest on the part of our people to want to find out about the UFO phenomenon and about the existence of this extraterrestrial civilization. What's basically being revealed is that there's a national security state, deep state that is operational, that is overwhelming our constitutional government right now, and that they have devoted themselves to keeping this secret. That they, in fact, want to have a monopoly power over this technology. That they've recovered some craft that have accidentally crashed, and they're engaged in a very aggressive, what they call kinetic program, of trying to bring down these UFO craft so that they can get an intact UFO craft and back engineer it to make a weapons system. That's clear. What they see their interest in doing. They want to have a first strike weapons system so that they can use the United States interests to coerce other people all around the world so that we can maintain our continued privileged access to the strategic raw materials of the whole world. That's what they're engaged in. That's what they see as their mission to do. And it's perverted our entire constitutional system right now. So the last question that you ask is it possible through the regular constitutional arms of our government, our legislature, our FBI, our our Justice Department? Is it possible to get laws passed that these people will obey? Well, the answer to that right now is no. The fact is they don't view themselves as being bound by the constitutional constraints of our government. They believe that they know better than everyone else, that they're above the law, and that they're going to protect the ability of our corporations to get access to the strategic raw materials of the planet, so that we can continue to have, like, of the 4.5% of the population of our planet that our United States citizens represent, that we can consume up to 40% of all the non-renewable resources on the planet every single year. I mean, the whole rest of the world knows that. The problem is the American citizens don't know that. They think that that our government is in part promoting democracy and individual rights and human rights around the world, etc., instead of this. And the fact is, the national security state is not engaged in doing any of those things. It's just trying to maintain absolute military superiority on the planet, so that we can maintain our continued privileged access to these strategic raw materials for the benefit of our corporations primarily. That's what's happening. Now, that's being more and more revealed around this UFO issue, because so many people so badly want to know about the UFO stuff, and they're getting really upset over the fact that there's this CIA and DOD plot to keep this secret. Okay, and so until and unless we can break through that organization that is asserting unconstitutional control over the instrumentalities of our government, we're not going to be able to get this to happen unless we do it ourselves.
Yeah.
This leaves open the prospect of our citizens, in each one of these citizens for disclosure groups around the country, all 435 of them, one in each of the congressional districts, also have a direct program of CE5 activity, where we actually train people to go out in the fields in the night and call out for the UFO vehicles to come, and you can do it in the daytime as well, to try to establish direct citizen diplomacy, to have a direct citizen-to-citizen contact with the individual beings that are piloting these craft, so that our American people can have direct communication with them. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to scare the bedevil out of the national security state people that are going to be saying, holy shit, we can't let this happen. We can't let this get out of our control. And so what they then are likely to do is to make more information available, to try to tap off this desire on the part of our American people to have direct citizen diplomacy, because we've lost such confidence in the constitutional structures of our government. Okay? So that's the situation that we're in right now. So our New Paradigm Institute is advocating both direct citizen diplomacy through the development and training of people to do the CE5 activities, so that we can take control of this ourselves. And at the same time, what we're doing is we're trying to utilize the constitutional structures of our government to get them to stand up and perform their obligations. The members of the Senate and the House have an absolute constitutional obligation to get this information that is mandated by our Constitution under Article 1 of our Constitution, that the Congress of the United States are the ones that develop policy and make laws in our country, not the executive branch, and certainly not the military and the intelligence community. Okay, and so that we've got to, through the desire we have to get this information about the UFO reality and the extraterrestrial civilization, to know about this, we've got to break the hold that the national security state people have over our constitutional government. Okay, and that's the reality of this thing. So the sad and unfortunate answer to the final of your 14 questions is that at the present time they're not exercising their responsibilities to do this. They're kind of futzing around the edges of it. And mainly it's a lot of freshmen, people who've come into the Congress who don't know any better, who are
How
saying,
important
wait a
is
second,
yeah, how
pardon?
important is the UFO history to the small little group of people that really don't know much? And how do you and your group and the people in the UFO world, you
Yeah.
mentioned some big names there. How do we educate the small group of people to kind of catch them up to speed on the history of ufology?
Well, the problem
Sorry,
is
Jason.
that even assuming that we convince some key leaders in the House of Representatives and the Senate about this, they are afraid of the national security state. That if they step forward and get out of line and try to demand that this information be made public, they're going to all of a sudden discover that millions of dollars show up in their next election against them to
Mm.
unseat them. This has happened in the past. Senator Frank Church, the famous Church Committee that began investigating the criminal activities of the CIA, his very next election, that millions of dollars showed up mysteriously in his state of Idaho, revealing the fact that he supported the Equal Rights Amendment for women. And that he also supported registering automatic firearms. And they used that to get him kicked out of office. They did the same thing to Dick Clark, the senator from Iowa,
So
who was opposing.
yeah,
Pardon?
I'm sorry, Daniel, but they use your own political system against you
Yeah,
for disclosure. Like they're using it like to me, when you're saying all this stuff, I'm trying to keep it in order, but it's kind of like the Tasmanian devil, when he would spin and take all the debris with them, and you're trying to
yeah,
make sense of what, like, it's crazy that you're keeping this all in order of like all the sections. I would lose my mind. And you're right, it is 4D chess, but
yeah.
they use your own system against you to keep this quiet. That's insane.
Because they've been allowed to do it outside of the country.
Okay.
Because the Congress has acquiesced to the CIA and the Defense Department engaging in covert operations to overthrow democratic governments around the world, to assassinate political leaders around the world, to smuggle massive amounts of heroin around the world, to finance secretly their operations, etc. And the members of Congress know they're doing that, and they've acquiesced in it because they're afraid, because they know that they'll be retaliated against, because that covert operation that they've developed in the CIA and other places to unseat democratic governments around the world, they have turned those weapons against the citizens here
So
in our country.
yeah, but wouldn't Daniel, wouldn't that and you would know this more than anybody else, but wouldn't that constitute treason from the military complex against its own country? The way that they're doing this, like, and maybe that's why disclosure can't come out, because it's treasonous. Not only what if they've kept from Congress, but what they've done to their own people. We keep thinking about the CIA, what they've done to other countries, but what they've done to Americans, including the MK Ultra programs and all that, is above disgusting. And those crimes is, I think, what they're worried about, that as disclosure comes forward, all the dirty laundry comes out and they can't control it. They say, well, it wasn't us. We didn't do it back in the 60s. It's a fresh group. Yeah, but
Yeah,
what are you up to now?
yeah.
And I'm just wondering what legalities, like what can the government do against a rogue military complex?
Well, the problem is right now that it's only the government who can prosecute treason.
Right.
What we as citizens can prosecute is a federal criminal racketeering enterprise, which is what they are.
Mm.
There's a statute that Congress had passed to give citizens the right to bring an action in the federal court systems to charge them with committing specific lists of crimes, that they've embezzled hundreds of billions of dollars out of other appropriations that have been made by Congress to go and fund other aspects of our government. They've embezzled that money to finance this secret program that they're engaged in. They've committed perjury to the United States Congress. They've intimidated witnesses. They've kidnapped people and taken them into custody to intimidate them. That this is prosecutable. The problem is that if you try to get the instrumentalities of our government, our constitutional government, to do anything about that, they choke. And you look at what happened in Iran-Contra. I mean, we had these people dead to rights. We knew exactly what they were doing. That they were supplying weapons to the Contras down in El Salvador, in Nicaragua, uh, in complete violation of a direct order of Congress prohibiting them from doing that. And not a single person was punished for that. Not a single person was prosecuted for that. The special prosecutor came in. We got the special prosecutor appointed, Judge Lawrence Walsh, and he indicted 13 of them. And President Bush Sr. pardoned all of them to keep them from revealing what was really going on.
Just like
We
flipping
did
the
the same thing
bird,
in
right?
Watergate. We
Yeah.
we 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 tracked them down in Watergate, and what happened? I mean, Nixon resigned, and a handful of people went to prison, for obstructing justice, temporarily, but no structural changes were made. Okay, so that this national security state thing that we're dealing with is such a serious problem that we have here, that what we've got to do is we've got to mobilize the people in our country who are genuinely desirous of getting this information about the UFO stuff, and genuinely desirous of establishing some kind of a constructive, mutually beneficial relationship with the extraterrestrial civilization here. That we've got to bring all of this pressure to bear against this national security state. And we've got to try to stand up people in the House and Senate of our United States government who are courageous enough to go after these people. Okay. And the people that are in there right now are only moderately so. And so that they're doing moderate things to try to get at some of this information. But in the final analysis, they're always setting up structures that are completely dependent upon the national security state agreeing to release the information. Okay, and they won't demand subpoena power. They won't do this yet. And it's the House of Representatives that is the focus right now, because we've revealed so much information to the Senate Intelligence Committee and to their staff and to their members that they have come forward with a 64-page bill. And we've got to get that passed now by the House. That's why the House becomes the battleground right now, to try to get enough members of the House of Representatives that are going to vote for that full 64-page bill. And then the contest becomes who's going to be on that 9-person panel,
Mm.
that are going to be reviewing this, and how much information are they going to be willing to publicly release. We've got to have the American people rise up and demand that people be appointed to that board who are going to do their job
Yeah.
and not just succumb to the national security state. That's where the battleground is going to be. So, as a trained attorney and a constitutional litigator for 50 years, and co-founder of the Harvard Civil Rights Law Review, I mean, I've familiarized myself with what the structures of our government are, that we can utilize to give them a full and fair opportunity to exercise their constitutional authority, and take and exercise their constitutional obligation to do this. And if they won't, that we know how to take the steps to replace them. And we also know how to take direct citizen action by the CE5 activities of reaching out to establish diplomatic contact and communication directly with the extraterrestrial beings. So all of these things are within the constitutional framework of our government, but we as citizens have to get off the couch, stop spending so much time watching football games and watching movies on 16 different cable television channels, and do our job as citizens. Okay, and so the question is, do people care enough? Do people care enough about the reality that we're surrounded by an extraterrestrial civilization that has solutions to our global climate change problems, with alternative sources of energy? They have access to information that has provided, I think, by this time, definitive answers to some of the most profound philosophical and even theological questions that our human family has been struggling with for eons.
Mm.
And are we ready for this? Are we going to insist upon getting this information? And that's the only solution. I mean, really, the rest of it is playing house, but we're exhausting all of our administrative remedies. to give all of the constitutional instrumentalities of our government the opportunity to function the way they're required to do by our Constitution. And we're going to mobilize to get people into those offices, the House offices and Senate offices, that have the courage to do this by disconnecting them from major corporate contributions, because the corporations realize that this national security state is functioning for their benefit.
Mm.
Okay, and so that they're not going to support this. So that what we have to do is we have to get candidates that are willing to be supported by citizens movements to get them into those offices, to insist upon asserting their constitutional power, in taking responsibility to perform their constitutional obligations, and go after this element deeply buried in the Defense Department, in the Central Intelligence Agency, root them out, get them criminally prosecuted under the Federal Criminal Racketeering Act for their acts of perjury, their acts of embezzlement, their acts of kidnapping and intimidation, and even murder of witnesses, to
Plenty
keep
of
them
them.
silent.
Yeah.
This is what has to get done. That's what the New Paradigm Institute is here for,
Mm.
to do all of those things, and to try to establish alliances with all the other citizens organizations to raise up their commitments to the same intensity that we have, so that they're not drinking the Kool-Aid and thinking that all you have to do is get a law passed by Congress, and that somehow that's going to solve the problem, because that isn't going to solve the problem.
What do
We've
you
got to.
think is in that? What do you think, or can you speculate on what you believe might be in those 30 pages that they don't want to release? What do
No,
you
no,
think
no.
might be?
What the 30 pages I'm talking about are the other pages of the 64-page Senate bill that is
Right,
all
what's in
public. That is the setting up of this board of review. This is giving subpoena power to the board to extract information. This has got criminal penalties in there for people who retaliate against whistleblowers. Those are the additional pages that we need to get past. But but with regard to the deeper one of your 14 questions, basically was is like, what is it that we don't even know about yet?
Yeah.
Okay, but some of the things that we don't even know about yet is, for example, the fact that this element in the national security state has been using children, has been getting children out of these schools, mainly on military bases, military families, of getting the children, trying to train them into exercising psychic capabilities, right? So that they can be trained to help train pilots to fly these craft because they run telepathically. And it's going to be revealed that they've known that they are frying the brains of some of these kids by subjecting them to stimulations, electronic stimulations, to stimulate their psychic abilities, and that they've done things like this. Okay, now those are more heinous crimes that have not even been publicly discussed to a great deal right now. But the fact of the matter is that this national security state has to be rooted out, and we have to be able to get China and Russia to respond by starting to disassemble their national security states as well. Because the simple reality is that the United States is the one that started this. The United States is the one that supported the creation of the Third Reich in Germany. The people from Brown Brothers Harriman, they financed the creation of the Third Reich in Germany to be a bulwark against Bolshevism, that had arisen at the end of World War One, by ousting the Tsar Nicholas II. And what this is it's a war that's been mounted on behalf of the capitalist economic system of corporate capitalism, in that they're making war on the rest of the planet in order to maintain their continued privileged access to the strategic raw materials. That's what's going on here. And so we've got to stand down that war machine here in our country, and we've got to be able to reach out to China and Russia to get them to respond by saying, look, they've created their entire national security state apparatus in competition with this of the United States, that we've got to get them all to stand down from this weird combat that they're engaged in over the economic system on our planet. Okay, this is what we've got to do, and we've got to do this as citizens here in the United States because we have at least access to our democratic principles here still, which they don't have in Russia and they don't have in China.
Right. Do
So
you
we're the ones that have to do this if we're going to get this done.
do you think at this point it's probably fairly safe to, assume that it's the new Cold War amongst Russia, China, United States, or any other country that have these technologies to reverse engineers, who's going to get the best
Mhm.
out of these crashed retrievals? And China would probably equally have as many crafts, considering how old China is, the amount of land that they have. Same with Russia. So the United States has a good plan, and the fact is that Canada's been hand in hand with the states since 1947. Anything happens in Canada, we call NORAD right away. Come here, boys. United States shows up, grabs the stuff, and ships it back home.
Mhm.
And that is the plan. It's like, okay, and you're right. Like, they mobilize globally if something happens, and South America, they're there within hours. And it's
Mhm.
amazing how fast these people mobilize.
Right.
And I think it's a new Cold War. It has to be, because now it's not nuclear bomb. We're talking about non-human intelligence
Yeah.
technology being used against humans.
Yeah. Well, you got to understand that the Cold War did not begin just after World War II. I mean, the Cold War began right at the end of World War One,
Mm,
when Robert Lansing, who was the Secretary of State under the Woodrow Wilson administration, the minute that the Bolsheviks overthrew Tsar Nicholas II, our Secretary of State sent in a foreign military expeditionary force into Russia to try to crush the Bolshevik Revolution.
mm,
And people don't even talk to you about that. I mean, and they say, "Oh, that must be a conspiracy theory." No, it's absolutely, unequivocally demonstrated historically that that's what happened.
mm.
Secretly, they sent in a foreign military expeditionary force to try to crush the Bolshevik Revolution, and they started the war. They started to try to crush the socialist movement around the world. Okay, and our job is to try to have some form of democratic principles operating in a social democratic structure, so that the citizens our needs are actually met. That you don't have administrations that cut off all medical assistance to people, cut off educational funds and everything else. That you have to have a genuine democracy functioning on behalf of the interests of the people. Okay, that there has to be a democratically grounded, constitutionally protected system of human rights in a social democratic economy that is functioning on behalf of the interests of the people and not on behalf of the interests of the richest 1% of the people on the planet. I mean, that this is not rocket science. This is what we have to be able to do here. That's what the New Paradigm Institute is all about. It's the long range program that has to be instituted here. And we need to reach out to the Soviet Union or Russia now and China and get them to cooperate. But we've got to stand down our own national security state, who are the aggressors in this campaign and have been the aggressors ever since the beginning of this,
Mm.
all the way back to the end of World War One. Okay, so the people need to come to realize this. This whole movement on behalf of disclosure of the UFO reality of the thing is the engine in which our democracy can be saved.
I think the problem, or at the core of all this, if you take the average citizen like myself,
A little closer,
and
Petey.
look at like I'm sorry, you take the average citizen like myself, and you looked at let's say the JFK, documents that just were released, thousands upon thousands of pages, with all these different players. Nobody's prosecuted. We still don't. I mean, we have theories on what the truth is, right? But at the end of the day, it's so overwhelmingly complicated. And I think the same's going on with this whole UFO movement. And some people think it's evil and it's scary. That for the average person like me, my voice seems minuscule. Like I'm just a tiny little drop of water, and there's only a few thousand of us out there fighting for this. How do you give the average citizen a voice and make them feel like you absolutely can make a difference, and where's going to be like the big wave that we need to sweep over to make change?
Yeah.
Because for me, it feels like a game we can't win. It feels overwhelming, complicated, and it feels intentional. That it's intentionally that way. So people, even like me, who's really into this subject, feels like I'm powerless against it. What do we say to these people?
No, that you tell them what you say to them is get in touch with the New Paradigm Institute. You know that this is the place where the information is being distilled, is being analyzed, it's being put in digestible form so that people can understand it. It's backed with footnotes in white papers and detailed information. We're coordinating with other groups such as the people in the Sol Foundation that are doing scientific white papers. We're in communication with people like Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ and others that are trying to share information, who are not sharing everything that they know. That's for sure.
That's a
Okay,
problem
and
too.
and what we're trying to do is get them to do that. And what we're trying to do, for example, we're trying to find all the people that have been involved in this program that are now in their 90s, and no longer have to continue to keep these
Right.
secrets, and that they need to reveal these things as they approach their deathbeds. That they've got the information. We need to get them to share the information. We need to put it in communicable form through the New Paradigm Institute and organize on the ground. We've got to have ground forces. We've got to have people in every one of the 435 congressional districts that, in addition to inviting everybody to come over on a Saturday afternoon to watch college football, and drink beer and eat food that's killing them, what they need to do is have meetings of their neighbors, friends, and neighbors. Go to the local Kiwanis Club and American Foreign Legion Club and the different places they come together and talk about this. They've got to go to their churches and synagogues and they in temples, and they've got to talk to them to say, look, at this is an extraordinarily important issue for our theology, to know where our human family fits in the chain of intelligent life in the universe, and that we need to start talking about this. The answer lies with us. Well, you're just one drop of water, that you start adding 2 drops of water, then 1,000 drops of water, and 10,000, then 1,000,000 of them, and you become a waterfall that just pours down on these people. And that's what we've got to do. And we've got to sweep into Congress. We've got to take over the instrumentalities of our government here. We've got to call down this national security state, bring it to heel, reach out to the Soviet Union, or to Russia now, and to China, and to India and the other major countries of the world, the UK and the UE nations, and we've got to stand down the national security state apparatuses of our nation states. We've got to overcome this, okay, in order to qualify to be citizens of this galactic federation. Whatever it is. We don't know exactly what the contours of it are, but we need to find out. That's what the New Paradigm Institute is here for. And we've through our 501c3 organization, we've been operational since 1980 in Washington, D.C. We did the Karen Silkwood case. We stopped the construction of private nuclear power plants across the country. We revealed the lies about the Vietnam War, with the publishing of the Pentagon Papers. We've revealed who killed Karen Silkwood. We've revealed the criminal smuggling of weapons to the Contras. We have done this stuff over the last 50 years. That's why we have committed ourselves to what is this rather bizarre subject matter of UFOs, that everybody tried to say, don't go near the UFO thing because people will say you're crazy. Okay, we have garnered all of the goodwill that we have gathered over the last 50 years. We've committed ourselves to doing this project, in organizing our people so that every single individual drop of water of the citizenry can come together to be a huge waterfall, and pour down on our institutions, our government institutions, our economic institutions, our religious institutions, and reform them into those that are actually serving the people, that are actually revealing to our people the kind of extraordinary capacities that our human family has. of telepathic communication, of remote viewing, of the kind of capacities that the religious institutions have been suppressing all of this time to their laity, so that they can maintain control over us on behalf of the state. That's, ever since the Catholic Church became the state religion of the Roman Empire, they've been involved in this task. I say this as former general counsel at the United States Jesuit headquarters in their social ministry office. So I know what we're talking about here. And what we need to do is recruit people, mobilize people, help educate people, and get people to focus on achieving the full disclosure of what the people need to know about the UFO phenomenon and the extraterrestrial civilization. This is our avenue to freedom, to get out from under this national security state that is threatening the total thermonuclear destruction of our planet every single minute of the day. And threatening the massive disruption of our entire global economic and ecosystem through global climate change, through their attachment to the petroleum industry, because of the power of the major petroleum corporations. Okay? And the fact is, we've been successful over the past 50 years in getting more and more and more people to recognize this reality. But the problem is, we don't want people to become helpless in the face of it, by saying, oh, the more I know, the worse I feel. That's not true. I know more than anybody here that we're talking about, and I'm still optimistic that we can get this done. That we can get this done, but it's going to require a lot more attention and a lot more time spent being a good citizen than people are yet ready to do. We've got to get people mobilized, and this particular issue can mobilize people.
So what you're saying is, if there's enough drops in the bucket, we can waterboard the gatekeepers.
No, no,
Right?
I
No,
wouldn't
no,
say
no,
that.
I'm joking. I'm
I would
joking.
never, I would
I'm
never, I
joking.
would never go anywhere near that.
No,
What
no,
I'm saying,
I'm a
what
kidder.
I,
I
what I,
throw
what I
jokes
would
at
say,
these
what I
guys.
would say is that we can become a mighty river.
Yeah.
We can become a mighty river flowing and cutting our way through into the natural environment to sustain a new life for our people that live along the river.
So
This is
yeah,
what we need.
and it's brilliant the way that you're putting it, because over time water will erode away a rock, or
That's
pretty much
right.
anything, right?
That's
Um,
right.
but basically, my last question for you here is, recently I think there's a big parallel between the Epstein files and the UFO disclosure, because both of them are like, oh yeah, well, in my campaign I'll disclose both of them. You'll get Epstein and you'll get UFOs. And then they backtrack, and then, oh, it's not UFOs. Oh, the Epstein, like, it just, they rewind the tape and then play dumb and gaslight us. I was going, oh, we never said there was anything in the files. I hadn't looked at the files yet. Like, they treat us as if we're 5 year olds, like something I would tell a 5 year old to convince them what I did was not wrong, or I didn't lie to you. And that's what it feels like they're doing to us. Like, and to me, it's an insult to the intellect of people like yourselves that are very well educated. Kind of like, are you, like, there's got to be times where you're like, are you shitting me? Just with the stuff that they come out. I mean, obviously better said than I would say, but this drives me nuts, is that they
Well,
treat us like we're idiots. They treat us
Jordan, they're
as,
treating us like 5 year olds because we're acting like 5 year olds.
right.
You know, I mean, we're spending our time playing with our toes. And asking to get some candy, give me some candy. Rather than paying attention
Yeah.
to learning about things and learning how to speak other languages, learning how to read and do things like that. A child left to their own devices may not do all that stuff. They need some responsible leadership, just like parental assistance they need. That's part of what the New Paradigm Institute is doing, is trying to act like responsible grown-ups and say, look, here's what we have to do. That they are going to treat us like 5 year olds as long as we act like 5 year olds.
Right.
That we're more titillated by watching cartoons, than reading a book. That this is what we've got to do. We've got to come of age here. This is the coming of age of our American citizenry. That even though, as I say, we only represent 4.5% of the entire population of the planet, we have a unique responsibility, because we have access to more constitutional liberties still, at least temporarily. We still have it. And if you don't use it, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got to use our constitutional rights right now to mobilize and educate ourselves and rise up and quell this national security state here in the United States, and reach out responsibly to people in Russia and China and India and UK and the European countries, to get everybody to stand down from this ridiculous war
Yeah.
over the natural resources of our planet. Okay, and take advantage of the fact that there are alternative sources of energy. There's alternative sources of access to resources. There's there's an extraordinary future for our human family if we're willing to exercise our responsibility as citizens. Otherwise, we're going to be treated as 5-year-olds.
Right.
Okay, so we've got to grow up here. This is the age of our adolescence, and we've got to grow up. Okay.
Hold
And
people
don't
accountable
be
too.
afraid. Don't be afraid that you're going to discover things when you come out into the adult world that are different than you're going to discover that Santa Claus isn't real.
What?
Okay, and you're gonna discover that that in fact, as Jesus said, that you are going to do much greater things than I have ever done. You know, and until you can come to understand that the stuff of which this bread is made up of is the same substance of which my body is made up of, that you won't understand what's going on here. Okay, these are theological secrets that are buried inside the churches that need to be exposed and need to be shared with the people. But we have to demonstrate that we're capable of exercising responsible control over our capacities as a human family. Okay, and all it takes is becoming active citizens. All the radical request that we're making at the New Paradigm Institute is that people become responsible citizens and exercise our authority that we still have to gain control over this government and to gain control over the remaining constitutional structures that we have, and to quell this national security state, to put them back in the box, and get control of our government, and reach out constitutionally to these other nation states, and get them to stand down on their national security state operations, to disassemble and to destroy all of the nuclear weapons warheads on our planet, so that we don't continue to threaten to destroy the entire life generating capacity of our planet. Because this is going to potentially generate an intervention on the part of the extraterrestrial civilization. I do not believe that they're going to tolerate our single species on this planet totally destroying the life generating capacity of this planet, because the genetic materials that our planet has generated over the billions of years, is such a valuable resource in the galaxy that they're not going to allow us to do that.
Yes.
And if they have to intervene, we're going to lose our capacity for our free will. We're going to lose our capacity to exercise our own judgment and exercise our own agency over our own lives here.
Right.
Okay, this is a serious situation that we're dealing with here,
So
and that's why people
it's
like
the
Lou Elizondo.
accountability, right?
Yeah,
What you're saying is we need to start bringing back accountability. We hold our leaders accountable. We hold our military accountable. Everybody, because I think that's today's day and age. Is there's no accountability on anything. Nobody's ever accountable. Like you said, they walk
yeah,
away with their
they all walk
crimes.
away.
Yeah,
They all walk away.
it makes no sense. How is this possible? There's no accountability. It's
No,
just gone. Yeah.
and I think that we have to have a different. I don't think that we're capable anymore of holding them responsible. What we
Mm,
have to do is put people in to replace them who are responsible.
mm,
That's the key to this thing. The people that are there now that have been generated by this political system are not responsible.
right.
That they are responsible to the people who pay for their campaigns, which
Like you
are the
said, they're
major
perverted,
corporations.
right?
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. What we need to do is replace them. We have to have a massive mobilization to have citizens run for these political offices who are dedicated to exposing this information, to eliminating this national security state, to establishing a social democratic system, in our country that can in fact be the beacon to the world.
Nicely said. Katie,
Always.
you got any, like, a quick last question to ask Daniel
Well,
today?
we're gonna have to have Daniel back on because I really wanted to go down the Howard Hughes and Mount Wilson Ranch and Bigelow and all that. So that's a whole other
I
show.
think Daniel is a
So
series of
that's it. But
interviews.
I do want to say, let's turn that 2,000 drops of water into 4,000, into 6,000, and
That's right.
so on. And so I just
Absolutely.
want to thank Daniel for being here and sharing all this. I really learned a lot on this podcast, and I actually, I feel like I'm not doing enough. So you got to me. I hope we get to our listeners to go out there and take some
Good.
action to get this rolling. I want to expose these aerospace companies too. They're just
Yep.
they know so
Absolutely.
much more and they're not held accountable for anything. Another whole podcast we could go down there. So thank you
Yep.
for the work you're doing. Everybody get to the newparadigminstitute.org, fill out this, talk to your local officials in government, whatever state you're in, wherever you are, take action and do that. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate all this great information.
Great,
I would,
Katie. I appreciate it. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jason.
hey, you are amazing, sir. Every time I see you somewhere at either convention or even last time in Washington, you are a workhorse. There's constantly a mic in your face, or people wanted to take a selfie. I got a selfie in with you, but it was so quick. I was like, hey, and you were like, you're so used to it. By the end of the day, your face must be sore. But it's amazing the amount of work that you're doing and the push that you do. You are leading the charge, especially for maybe younger lawyers that may want to take up this issue as well and start, because I'm sure that's going to come up where you'll need legal
Yeah,
representation.
it
And
is.
yeah, so you're a pioneer in that. So Daniel, seriously, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate
Terrific.
it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jason. Thanks, Katie. I'll see you next time.